And so here we are hidden every possible way to teach a child about a topic
Yeah.
and ingraining it in them. So not only have you desensitized that child, you are now breaking down their previous worldview and recreating a new worldview. And that's very important to them, not to the child, but to comprehensive sex educators, to the abortion industry. Why? Because sex education is actually the marketing tool that feeds abortion.
That's was
And
gonna be my
so
next
as these
question.
children right. And so as these children are desensitized to this, they're learning that they can dehumanize one another. They're learning that sex is about objectifying one another, that sex is not about intimacy or marriage or having children, but instead sex is about sexual pleasure. And all it requires is consent. And then even consent is a very gray area.
Mhm.
So these children, so now imagine now after this icebreaker, they are desensitized, and literally to talk about STD and HIV transmission and pregnancy means that we're going to talk about every possible sexual activity. And so that was my next lesson from my mentor at Planned Parenthood is, Monica, when you walk into a room full of children, I want you to imagine that they've done anything and everything when it comes to sex. And if they haven't, they will. And it's your job as a sex educator to teach them about every form of sex, their risk of getting an STD or pregnant, and how to reduce that risk by using condoms and lubrication.
Mhm.
And it's not a matter of if they get an STD or become pregnant, but when they do,
Mhm.
then they need to come in to get tested, treated, and have an abortion. And so you see that it's not a matter of maybe you'll get pregnant, maybe, it's no, it's we know that they will.
Mhm.
And so now funnel those kids to the clinic
Mhm.
so that we can increase our business and treat them for their STDs and abort their children. And so when you then put that child on that path,
Yeah.
they start to engage in sexual activity. They have to go to Planned Parenthood because they're afraid that they have a disease or they're pregnant.
Mhm.
And you put them on that cycle of behavior. And more secrets are building because these are not things that their parents are going to approve of.
Mhm.
So again, there's that wedge that is now getting bigger and bigger between the child and the parent.
Mhm.
And now that child is going through things that they're not prepared to, that children do cannot handle the burden of becoming sexually active. It's a burden too great for them.
Mhm.
Getting a disease and learning how to manage that and get treatment is also a burden a child cannot handle on their own. Becoming pregnant and having an abortion, again, a burden a child cannot handle on their own. They're afraid to talk to their parents about it, so they're relying on the authority in those clinics and those educators.
Mhm.
And so here and not only that, we're breaking down that communication between the family,
Mhm.
but they have now learned that sexual intimacy is not about love and it's not about children. And they are less likely to pursue a healthy relationship where they will get married and have children.
Mhm.
And so, really, this is all about the destruction of the family.
Yeah.
Um, as I talked to the clinicians, as I spoke to other sex educators, and as I was promoted to eventually become the Title X training manager for Texas and New Mexico, everyone always said that parents were a barrier to service.
Mhm.
Parents were a barrier to access to children. Parents were a barrier to getting children to come into a clinic
Mhm.
and to use these services. Parents are always considered a barrier. And this is why they create laws and policies to ensure that they have access to children
Mhm.
without parent consent. And so if for a child to get Title X services, which is family planning, getting birth control, getting pap smears,
Mhm.
the government language actually states that they will provide this service free of charge to any woman of childbearing age. At the very beginning of our conversation, we talked about what that
Mhm.
means. A girl as young as 9.
Yeah.
So a girl as young as 9 can walk into a clinic that has Title X funding. She can get a pap smear, she can get birth control pills, she can get treated for STDs. She can get all that paid for by the government and her parents will never know.
That's insane. And I'm assuming
And
that
that's been going on for a very long
and I'm
time.
assuming that the parents didn't know what you were teaching the children when you would go into schools as well, because it would have been like you would have been invited by a
No.
teacher. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, parents probably didn't even know that sex educators were coming in and teaching their class, and if a child isn't going to say
No.
anything,
Especially once you drive that
which
wedge.
they may not.
Yeah.
Right, right, so this isn't it's posed to the child that this isn't a bad thing, it's just that your parents don't understand and we're gonna teach you, and
Mhm.
quite honestly, kids don't usually tell their parents what they're learning at school anyway, so it's out of sight, out of mind kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And so they're using the vulnerability of our children against them is what they're using their natural curiosity, they're using their natural human development against the
Mhm.
child to lure them into high risk activity that's high risk for their spiritual lives, their emotional lives, and their physical
Yeah.
lives.
Did Planned Parenthood ever teach you to talk about abstinence at all, either in favor of it or against it?
Abstinence is considered laughable to Planned Parenthood and to anyone in the STD or HIV
Okay.
community. And that is a direct quote. Abstinence is laughable. They do not believe that anyone will abstain. They don't believe that Christians abstain. They don't think priests abstain. They don't think their worldview is sex all the time. And so they believe it's laughable. It's not, if anyone says that they were a virgin when they got married, maybe it's possible, but more than likely it's not true. So they don't believe abstinence is a real thing and it's laughable to them.